If you are a beginner or relatively new to chess, you need to make sure you learn these endgame checkmates before you do anything else. They are extremely common and they're going to help you win endgames that you would otherwise probably only draw. Welcome, guys, to the first video in a series where we're going through this book, Silman's Complete Endgame Course. This is a 9-part book that is broken up by rating. And part 1 is what we're covering in today's video, which is for players rated 1,000 or less. If you don't know what the rating means, if you're a beginner or you're relatively new to chess, this video is going to be for you. If you're a more advanced player, make sure you know how to do these things. I think you probably already will, but make sure you review and that you understand how to do these, okay? Let's go ahead and jump right in. There's a link to the book if you want to get the book and follow along, but you don't have to. You can also just watch the videos, and I'm going to summarize and give you my take on what's in part 1 of the book. So he really talks about 3 things, okay? Number 1 is what's called the staircase mates. Number 2 are the box mates. And then number 3 is you need to be careful about stalemate. Okay, we're going to come back to stalemate, but let's go ahead and just jump right in to the staircase mates. So if you're playing a long game, you get down to the end and you have a couple of major pieces. Now, when I say major pieces, I'm talking about rooks and queens. Okay, rooks and queens, you have a very easy way to win, especially if you have 2 or more of these. Okay, you only need 2. And what you do is what's called the staircase mate. And you can move these back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it kind of resembles a staircase. And as you do that, it forces the king to move back and to move back and to move back and to move back and to move back all the way until they get checkmated on the edge of the board. And now it doesn't matter if you start at the bottom and go up to the top, if you start at the left and go to the right, or the right and go to the left. You can do whatever you want, but you have to use these guys back and forth, and you're going to see exactly how this looks. So in this position, I'm trying to checkmate black's king. I can simply go queen b4. Notice it creates a line that the king cannot pass through, and so the king does something, and then I do the same thing with the rook. I bring it up. I'm now controlling all of these squares in addition to all of these other ones with the queen. And so what ends up happening is, guess what? The king has to move somewhere in this direction. Okay? Then I can do it again. Same thing. King goes back, same thing, and we get checkmate. Notice the rook stops the king from coming here. The queen is attacking the king, and that's the end of the game. Okay, now the only thing you have to be careful for is if the king starts to go towards your pieces. You might get a situation like this, where you go check, he goes here, and if you just move your queen, guess what? He just takes it, right? That's kind of the only thing you have to pay attention for. And stalemate, which we haven't talked about yet. So if this ever happens, the easiest and simplest thing to do in this case, since it's a queen, is you can always just go right in front of the king. Okay, this is a nice thing to remember. Queens in front of kings that are protected, it's always going to be checkmate. That's one thing. But you can also just go to the other side of the board. So you can just jump over here. And if he goes here to attack you, you just jump all the way over. And guess what? Now I can continue what I was doing. And it's over, okay? So that's what the staircase mate is. It's very simple. You need 2 heavy pieces, either 2 rooks or 2 queens or a rook and a queen, and you can simply checkmate the king very easily. Let's look at another example with the 2 rooks. So we have a kind of a different position here, but I'm going to do the same exact process. So I'm going to move my rook down. I'm just choosing to start down here and work my way up the board like this, okay? Or I should really draw them like this. So the king moves somewhere, and notice that it's attacking my rook. Now, this is one thing about rooks that's different from the queens that you want to keep in mind. Rooks can always be attacked by your opponent's king. So you will have to pay attention to this. Queens can never really be attacked, right? Because if you try to go next to a queen with your king, it's putting yourself in check. But whenever this happens, all you have to remember is jump to the other side of the board. Just jump to the other side of the board. It's going to take the king several moves to come back across where they can actually attack your rooks again. And guess what? While they're doing that, you can start doing your staircase checkmate. All right, check. The king moves, check. The king moves, check. The king moves. And now we have to be careful we don't continue or we will lose our rook, right? But what do we do in this case? Well, we just jump to the other side of the board, right? And then again, if they stop you, it doesn't really matter. You just jump to the other side of the board and you can finish off the game just like that, okay? That's the staircase mate. That's the first thing that you need to understand. So make sure that's clear. And once you've got that, let's move on to the box. So here we go. This is another position. And the major difference that you'll notice is now instead of having 2 major pieces, we only have 1, okay? We only have the king and the queen against the king, but we still have to win the game. How do we do it? The easiest and simplest way is to make a box and make it smaller and smaller and smaller. Now, he mentions this in the book several times. He says this is not the fastest way to checkmate, but it's the easiest way. Okay, and so if you're a beginner, don't worry about, well, how quickly does Stockfish say that I can checkmate here? Oh, it says it's like mate and 7 if I play these perfect moves. Don't worry about that. If it takes you a few extra moves, that's fine. Just make sure you understand the process, okay? And so we're going to just make a box. So if I move my queen here, notice that I've created this box that the king has to stay inside, okay? And all we're going to do is every move, try to figure out a way to make that smaller. And you can either just use your queen or you can use your king and your queen to help. I recommend using both of them because when we later see the example with the rook, you're going to have to use your king to help anyway. So it's kind of a good, habit to just start using your king. But you could also just do the queen. So in this position, what's the easiest and simplest way to make the box smaller? Well, I'm probably just going to go right here. I made it a little bit smaller. And you can also think of it as a rectangle, and you're trying to get that rectangle as small as possible. So let's say Black's king moves here. How do I make the box smaller? Well, we can't go there because he just takes me. So this would be a good time to use my king to help. I'll bring my king up to support my queen. And now after the king moves somewhere, guess what? I can bring the queen up a little bit and I continue to make the box smaller. Okay. And the way that I like to do this is whenever they move, I always ask myself, do I have a queen move that makes the box smaller? And if I do, I just play it. Okay, there we go. I just play it. If I don't have a queen move, like in this position, now it's my turn again. I don't have a queen move that makes the box smaller. I guess you could argue that this is a smaller box, but that's kind of like a different kind of a box, right? If I don't have a queen move, then I use my king. And I'll just bring my king up like this. And whenever you move your king up, there's always going to be an opportunity next move to then move your queen to get the box smaller. And here we go. All right. Let's say they move here. Do I have a queen move that makes the box smaller? Yes, I do. I just go right here. Now, it is important. Once you get the king stuck on a side of the board, it could be the side, it could be the back, it could be the bottom or the right side. I don't worry about the box anymore. At that point, I start to go for the checkmate. Okay. And the way that I recommend that you do this is look at where you have this barrier and then look at where the king is and bring your king to the opposite side of that barrier. Okay. And the reason that you want to do that is because whenever you can get your queen directly in front of the king like this, defended by your king, that's the checkmate position that you're looking for. Okay? It's that simple. Now, well, we're going to talk about stalemate more in just a second, but I'll go ahead and give you a little bonus here. If we would in this position say, oh, let's just make the box smaller. Why not? Let me go here. This is a stalemate. Okay? Because the king is not being attacked, but it can't move anywhere. That's considered a draw, tie game. That's not what you want when you're trying to win. Okay, we want checkmate. We want to get the full point. So this is what you have to avoid. This is a stalemate. We're going to talk more about that in just a second, but that's kind of what you have to avoid. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Let's take a look at now the same thing, but with the king and the rook. Okay, so it's our turn. What should we do? Well, let's make the box smaller by moving our rook. So here's our current box right here, right? We're going to make it a little bit smaller by going here. Now, the king comes up. Again, I want you to start with the rook and ask yourself the question, can I make this box smaller by moving my rook? Well, not really. If I move here, you could say that it's a smaller box, but the king is going to actually be able to just escape, right? And I didn't really accomplish anything. So, since I can't make the box smaller with my rook, what do? Well, that's when you make a king move. Now, you have to make sure that your king is always defending your rook. This is important, right? Because otherwise the king just takes you. So where do I want to move to? Here. That's the only place that continues to defend my rook. Now, after I move my king, Black's going to move somewhere. Let's say they go here. Again, I want you to ask the same question. Can I make the box smaller with my rook? Well, no, I would just get captured. Here is a check, but then he just escapes. Here, I would just get captured. Over here, that's a bigger box. So no, I can't. So what do you do if you can't make it smaller with the rook? That's right. You make a king move and you try to get as close to the king as you can. And so what I'm going to do is move up here. And I'm using my king to cut off here and forcing Black to move backwards. And then I can follow up with the rook move. Okay? And if you think they're going to escape like this way, they're never going to get the opportunity to do that, even though we've temporarily blocked off our rook. And here is why. Because if they move here, we're going to make the box smaller with our rook. And look at that. They never got the opportunity to sneak around. Okay? So we just keep doing the same thing. They move here. Can we use the rook? No, we cannot. So we move our king. They move here. Can we use the rook? No, we cannot. So we move our king. Let's say they move here. Can we use the rook? Yes, we can. We'll go there. Let's say they move a different place. How about here? Can we make the box smaller with our rook? Yes, we can. How about here? Gets the job done. Now we defend it. Let's say they go here. Can we make the box smaller? Not really with the rook, but we can use our king. Let's say I go here. They come over. Now we make it smaller. Okay. This is an important moment because, again, we have achieved the king is trapped against the edge of the board. And it's the same concept. We're going to get our king on the opposite side of that barrier. Okay, so like here's the barrier with the rook. We're going to get our king on the opposite side. And what we're looking for is an opportunity. Let me show you. Let's say they move here. We move here. They go here. This is what we want when the kings are directly opposed. Okay, this is another concept in endgames. Opposition, which we'll talk more about in future videos. But basically, once you have the king like this, the rook slides down and it's checkmate. Okay, it's important that your king is in this position because otherwise the king would be able to escape. But because we've got it boxed out, it doesn't work. Okay? Now let me back up a couple moves here just for a second. I showed you if the king moved this way, but if the king moves this way, you have a very interesting situation. We would like to go checkmate the king, and we've got the king boxed out. The problem is the king would take our rook, right? So we need to get our rook away from the king. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. One of them is to just move it far away to one side. So for example, let's just say I go over here. And the king is either going to go towards your rook or away from your rook. And if it goes towards your rook, now you want to jump back to the other side, okay? And the reason we're doing it like this is because we are trying to force the king to walk in front of our king when we are in position to deliver the checkmate. So let me just go back a couple of moves. I know this might be a little bit confusing, but in this position, we weren't in position to deliver the checkmate when the king walked in front of us because our rook was too close. So by moving our rook far away, we're trying to get in that position again, okay? They go here, we go to the other side, and now we have a different situation. We can deliver the checkmate. So they're going to have to run the other way, and now we just follow them with our king, waiting for them to step back. And eventually they're going to get to the corner where, guess what? They have to step back in front of our king. Okay, there's no more board for them to use. They step back and we deliver the checkmate. All right, so if you have to rewatch that part again to make sure you understand this, this is one area where beginners will get kind of thrown off in a position like this, where, you know, the king kind of steps and attacks the rook. They don't really know what to do. Okay, so rewatch that if you have to, but just swinging from one side to the other and waiting till you get that position is probably the easiest thing to do. Okay, and again, you want to watch out for the stalemate. So for example, if I did, let's just say something like this, just to show you what not to do. Okay, this is an example of a stalemate, right? I've trapped the king, but he's not being attacked by any of my pieces. That's a stalemate because he can't move. That's what you want to avoid. And now we're going to talk about stalemate. Now I've already kind of told you what it is, but this is very, very important because there's lots of situations where you will stalemate and instead of winning, you get a draw. Okay, so here's an example. You have the queen, you're trying to figure out how to checkmate, and instead of actually playing checkmate, which is here, you play this move, and now you get a stalemate. Okay, this is what you have to avoid. You always want to play a check, or make sure that you see a place that your opponent's king can move to. So let's say I'm thinking about going here. First question I would ask myself, is that a check? No, it's not a check. So because it's not a check, I have to be careful because it might be stalemate. But can my opponent's king move somewhere? Let me see. Aha. Looks like they can move right here. So that's not going to be a stalemate. This is actually a safe move to play. Okay. What about this move right here? Queen A8. Is that a safe move or not when I'm thinking about stalemate? Yeah, it's a safe move because it's a check, right? So because it's check, I don't have to worry. That's fine. I can go there. Regardless of if it's checkmate or not, it is checkmate. But even if I didn't see that it was checkmate, it would still be a safe move because it's check. Okay. But then when I do the same test about moving my queen here, okay, is it a check? No, it's not a check, not attacking the king. So I better make sure that he has a place to move. Let me see. No, king can't move anywhere, so I better not go there. Yeah, that's kind of the thought process that you want to use. Make sure you do not stalemate when you have a winning position. All right, now let's look at one more kind of wild position here. So in this position, white has just moved their rook. And by moving the rook, they've actually stalemated the black king. And this is important. There could be other pieces on the board, and you could still get a stalemate if those pieces cannot move, okay, if they are blockaded. this pawn is blockaded. It can't move. This knight is pinned by the bishop, which means, guess what? You can't move it. You're not allowed to move your knight and put yourself in check. Same thing with this guy. It's pinned by the rook. Even though it looks like black has potential moves in the position, they do not. Also, the king can't move here because the queen can't move here because the king, and obviously you can't take your own pieces. So this is a crazy version of a stalemate. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Next up, we'll look at part 2, which is endgames for players rated 1,000 to 1,199. Like I said, this is the book we're going through, Silman's complete endgame course. Links in the description if you want to get that. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. As always, stay sharp, play smart, and take care.